Carbon dioxide concentrations are now 50% higher than they were before the Industrial Revolution. Methane levels have more than doubled since 1750.
That warming is literally reshaping the landscape. What was once flat land now looks like this.
Is dotted with pockets of permafrost. The sinkholes, collapsed roads, and tipping houses are clues to places where it has warmed.
We often take it for granted that the ground beneath our feet is solid, but as the consequences of climate change manifest across the planet, that is likely to become a reality not afforded to many. The rise in global temperature since the Industrial Revolution has resulted in unstable ground throughout the Northern Hemisphere, bringing with it infrastructure damage, ecosystem imbalance, outbreaks of disease, and trapped greenhouse gases released back into the atmosphere. This instability and its consequences is caused by the gradual melting of what's known as permafrost. Permafrost is a layer of frozen soil that remains below 0 degrees Celsius, or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, for upwards of 2 years. It makes up roughly 25% of the Earth's northern hemisphere. As a layer of frozen ground can range from 3 to 3,000 feet deep, it ends up trapping and preserving organic matter and gases like methane and carbon. However, with the average global temperature warming by 0.32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0.18 degrees Celsius each decade, the solid permafrost is beginning to melt, releasing what's stored within and damaging the landscapes it makes up. Current research predicts that if warming continues to increase, half the world's permafrost will melt by the end of the century. The gases and matter within the permafrost accounts for over 4 times the amount of carbon produced from human industry. As that and other greenhouse gases like methane are released back into an atmosphere, a feedback loop is created. Increasing warming and increasing permafrost melt, releasing more gases. According to the UN, this release is irreversible. Beyond accelerating the warming, the loss of permafrost has led to severe environmental degradation. As the physical ground is comprised of permafrost, melting leads it to essentially collapse on itself, causing intense sloping and landslides. A particularly striking case is in eastern Siberian Bakhtigar crater, colloquially known as Hell's Gate. It is the largest crater formed by thawing permafrost and nearly a mile wide and over 300 feet deep. Permafrost thaw has also heavily impacted human infrastructure throughout the Arctic regions, destroying homes, damaging roads, power lines, pipelines throughout northern Russia, Alaska, and Canada. Recent research indicates that half of the Arctic infrastructure is facing damage in the next 30 years, costing tens of billions of dollars. Permafrost melt heavily impacts northern indigenous communities like the Gwich'in First Nations people in Canada and Alaska, who have increasingly muddy and unstable ground, foliage overgrowth, lowering water levels. They have lost thousands of acres of land and had food security threatened as landscape changes complicate traditional hunting and harvesting practices. Food sources are also threatened by the release of chemicals and bacteria that had once been stowed away by the permafrost. Fish and other wildlife are threatened by increased presence of mercury. In Siberia, thawing permafrost has uncovered reindeer carcasses infected with anthrax, which has killed over 2,000 reindeer and a 12-year-old child from the indigenous Nenets tribe in 2016. The gases released from permafrost cannot be returned, furthering heating our atmosphere. Permafrost thaw and all it entails will continue in the coming years. However, while the damage cannot be stopped, it can be slowed. Canada's Gwich'in First Nation has organized with other Indigenous communities in the Permafrost Institute at Canada's Yukon University to address land and use management. Globally, researchers estimate that if countries can curb greenhouse gas emissions in line with the Paris Climate Agreement and steps are taken to preserve wildlife and restoring foliage, up to 80% could be saved. It will not be an easy fix, but there is a work that can be done. To learn more and see how you could help, visit EPA.gov or donate to the Alaska Institute for Justice.